Today we will be using a transfer technique to help create a realistic portrait. Part of 5th grade curriculum is being able to create realistic art. So, step 1 to creating a realistic portrait, a portrait that looks real to life, is getting a visual reference. So you should have already taken a picture of yourself, and we're going to print it out in black and white, and we're going to use this to create our self-portrait. So first thing you want to do is take that piece of paper, turn it over. So this is the paper that I have my photo on. Turn it over and use a pencil to color behind your person, all the way behind the person. In this case, it is a self-portrait, so you're going to color everywhere behind where your face, hair, arms, whatever, however you have taken your picture, everything behind that. Then you are going to place it with the pencil side down onto your paper. So I have my final paper. This one's blank. I'm going to place this down on my paper where I want my face to be on my paper. It's a blank piece of paper. So placing that down, I'm now going to go through, and you can see where I've done this on this piece of paper before. I'm going to go through and I'm going to trace all of the outlines of my face. So I'm going to come around here, trace the outline of my face. Now I want to try and make sure that this does not move. So I need to take my time tracing that outline. I'm going to trace any lines that are on my face, such as my smile lines. I'm going to be tracing my mouth, my teeth. And yes, at first that is going to look funny when you are tracing all of that. It's going to look kind of funny. But remember, this is not your final piece of art. You are just trying to give yourself a guideline. You're giving yourself an outline. So it's kind of speeding up this process of creating a realistic portrait. This is not the only way that you could do this. You could also look at your portrait and take the time to notice those shapes, observe the different shapes of the face, observe the outline of the face. Sorry for my camera moving. Observe the outlines of the face and draw it free-handed, or in this case we're going to use the outlines. So I'm just kind of going in here and doing a few, pressing really hard. And it's your pencil, you're not really worried about this pencil going through to the paper. This pencil is just showing you where you're outlining right now. The pencil part that's actually going through the paper is the pencil that you have put on the back. So all of that I've put on the back is going through. So this is kind of hard to see because it's very light, but you can kind of see where I've traced. So there's my eye. Remember, this is just supposed to be a guideline, so you don't really want it to be dark. So let's pretend like I've traced everything. That's what happened with this one. Everything, all of those lines that you just saw were traced in here, and they gave me a guideline to see my eyes, where my eyebrows were, all of those things. So once I do that, I'm then going to take my photograph. So I want to keep this because now I need to observe the different shapes and the shades, the tints and tones of my face and all of the shadows and all of the highlights. So I recreate those. I see the shapes, I see the lines, I look for really dark areas, and when I go to that space, which I outlined those when I did this the first time, I outlined those sections where the dark was. I outlined that section so that when I was going in to add my shading, I was able to press really hard with my pencil and create a very dark area there. Now, areas that are lighter, such as the white part of my eye. When I look at this, I notice that it's not perfectly white. If I look at this area over here, it's a very light gray. So I very lightly came into that section, which I had the outline for because I traced it very lightly, and I'm going to very lightly with the side of my pencil create a very light shade there. Now, another thing that you can do is you can kind of blend. So to kind of blend some of these darker areas into the lighter areas, so I had to really take my time and slow down to notice that this area right here is ever so slightly darker than this little shape right here on my cheek. You can almost see this teardrop shape of highlight on my cheek here. So I needed to recreate that shape on my cheek over here. And I needed to create a darker, but not really dark like my hair. I needed to create that shade. So I came in here with my pencil and very lightly created some very light shading, just kind of lying my pencil to the side, slowly, slowly, slowly building up that color. And I wanted it to blend, so instead of using my finger, which can leave a lot of oil on your paper, I'm going to roll up this little piece of gauze. I'm doing this all one-handed because I have to hold this thing. But you can kind of roll up this little piece of gauze, and then you can kind of blend that way. And so I'm using that to kind of blend out, so it won't be such a harsh transition. It'll kind of slowly fade into that color that I need it to be. All right? So when I do my eyebrows or when I do my hair, I think about the direction that hair is growing. So when I shaded my hair, I shaded it coming down like this. Someone who has a different texture of hair than me might need to use a different type of line. When I did my eyebrows, so I outlined it first, but my eyebrow doesn't really look like that in real life. I had to kind of get rid of, that outline was very light on my actual paper. I had to come in here and I had to create these little lines of texture. So you can see where I took my pencil and I very lightly kind of went in that direction that my hair grows. Another thing that you can do if you're having trouble seeing textures on your paper is you can get a mirror off the wall and look at those textures. So do your best. Everything's not going to turn out perfectly the first time, but this is where you have to really take your time, observe those shapes, observe those shades, those light areas and those dark areas and all of those grays in between, and try to recreate those on your paper and do some testing out. How do you need to turn your pencil? How hard do you need to press your pencil? Sometimes it's good to get a piece of scrap paper to test it out first. If at first you don't succeed, try again. And keep in mind, if you don't feel like yours looks as good as mine looks, I'm 20 years older than you, so I've had 20 more years to practice. Mine did not look like this in 5th grade either. So do your best and don't give up on yourself.